Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. As we head into February, we're back into the swing of things with concerns about high inflation and rising interest rates front of mind for many Australians. This week, we have the latest figures on mortgage stress, which show how rising interest rates are impacting an increasing number of Australians. We also have an update on New South Wales voting intention, just 2 months out from the state election in late March. But first, a look at the key weekly indicators. Support for the Albanese government dropped in late January, although the party still has a commanding lead over the coalition. The ALP is down 2% to 57% and is now 14% ahead of the coalition on 43% on a two-party preferred basis. Despite the fall, support for the ALP is now 5 percentage points higher than at last year's May election. Government confidence has dropped this week, down 2 points to 105. Now 43.5% of Australians say the country's heading in the right direction, and 38.5% say they think the country's heading in the wrong direction. Despite a small increase, at 86.8, consumer confidence is still low and a large 15 points lower than the same time a year ago. Next, we look at inflation expectations, which have dropped marginally this week, down 0.6 percentage points to 5.1%. Inflation expectations, that's what the average Australian expects inflation to be over the next 2 years on an annual basis, and now well below their final reading of 2022. They were at 5.9% in mid-December last year. The fall in inflation expectations so far this year is good news for those worried inflation is set to take off in Australia. Last week, the latest ABS CPI figures for the December quarter were released, showing official inflation at 7.8%. That's for the year to December 2022, the highest annual figure for over 30 years. Many economists, including the Reserve Bank, believe the December quarter will represent the peak in inflation, which should come down significantly this year. Roy Morgan's inflation expectations, that's what people expect, peaked at a weekly high of 6.8% in early November and have come down significantly since then. Rising interest rates have had a direct impact on the property market and especially mortgage holders. The latest Roy Morgan mortgage stress results for December 2022 show the number of mortgage holders considered at risk or at risk of mortgage stress has increased rapidly and is now at its highest since July 2013. Now 23.9% of mortgage holders, equal to 1.1 million mortgage holders, are considered at risk, up from around 700,000 a year ago. Even more importantly, this number is set to rise further in coming months as the Reserve Bank continues to increase interest rates. The 30-year high in the official inflation figure for December 2022 has revised forecasts of what the Reserve Bank will do with interest rates, and the Reserve Bank is now expected to continue raising interest rates in both Feb and March, most likely by a quarter point, 0.25%. If the Reserve Bank does increase interest rates by 0.25% in each of the next 2 months, taking official interest rates to 3.6%, interest rates will be at their highest since June 2012, over a decade ago. Increasing interest rates to 3.6% by March will mean another 100,000 Australians will be at risk of mortgage stress, bringing the total to over 1.2 million, over a quarter of all mortgage holders. And that's the highest since October 2011. And now turning to our largest state, New South Wales, which faces an election in 2 months. Now there's a great deal of interest surrounding the New South Wales election, as a victory for Labor leader Chris Minns would mean the ALP has a clean sweep of governments across the Australian mainland. Only Tasmania will have a Liberal government if Minns leads the Labor Party to victory in March. The newly released Roy Morgan poll results for December show the ALP is certainly heading in the right direction, with an increasing lead over the Liberal National Coalition government of Dominic Perrottet. On a two-party preferred basis, the ALP is sitting on 55%, up 3% since November, and a full 10 percentage points ahead of the coalition on 45%. Premier Dominic Perrottet has faced media scrutiny in recent weeks on several issues, notably including his decision to wear a Nazi uniform to his 21st birthday party almost 20 years ago. And although opposition leader Chris Minns has played down the controversy, scandals and distractions like this do make it harder for Perrottet and the coalition to claw back lost ground. As we roll into 2023, the ALP are clearly in the box seat to win the New South Wales state election and complete a clean sweep of the Australian mainland. However, as people in New South Wales increasingly turn their minds to the election, we expect to see the margins narrow as the choice between Labor and the incumbent coalition government comes into focus. We saw the same tightening of the polls at last year's federal election, although the federal ALP did manage to win a narrow majority. And that's a wrap for this week. Subscribe for free to our Roy Morgan YouTube channel for all the latest political, economic and market research data and insights. Thanks for listening today, and I look forward to bringing you the latest data on consumer confidence, inflation expectations and voting intentions again next week. Take care. See you next Tuesday.